Welcome to the Refine and Shine, the podcast dedicated to mastering the art of continuous improvement and optimizing every aspect of your life. I'm Angelina Rivera, your host, and together we'll uncover the secrets to refining our lives, our habits, and our processes to unlock our inner brilliance. Join us on Refine and Shine, where we'll delve deep into achieving more in life without the burnout and without all the stress. This podcast is your platform for a more fulfilling life through continuous improvement and personal growth. In each episode, I and a diverse array of guests discuss practical strategies for up-leveling every aspect of your life. From developing good habits and organizing your space to refining your mindset and personal goals, we're going to explore it all. Our guests share personal stories about the systems they've developed or systems they've used and the tweaks they've made in their lives when refinement was needed, allowing them to truly shine. Listen to Refine and Shine to learn how you can implement continuous improvement techniques in your daily routine, develop and maintain healthy habits that lead to success and satisfaction, organize your life to reduce the stress and increase your productivity, foster a growth mindset that propels you to new heights. My mission is to inspire you to take bold action, make positive changes, and become the best version of yourself. Whether you're aiming to elevate your career, nurture meaningful relationships, or enhance your overall well-being, Refine and Shine is your guiding light. With over 25 years of experience in continuous improvement, I help businesses streamline their processes, establish efficient work areas, and implement standard work protocols. I have trained over 600 individuals and teams in process improvement, optimizing workflows, and enhancing overall operational efficiency. Tune in every week as we embark on an enlightening journey, exploring paths to refinement and illuminating the way to shine in every area of our lives. Subscribe now and join us on this journey to polish your life and let your best self shine through. Thank you for joining us on Refine and Shine. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Refine and Shine podcast. I am super excited about my guest today. Wow, she has such a transformational story, and I'm eager for you guys to meet her. Her name is Deborah Yager. I said that right?
Yes, thank you.
She is a master NLP trainer, a high-performance coach, and the co-founder of Yager Training. Her story is one of powerful full transformation from battling addiction, toxic relationships, and a crazy past to becoming a respected leader in the personal development space. Her life changed when she discovered NLP, which we're going to talk about in a bit, a tool that helped her rebuild her confidence, overcome deep fear and anxiety, and redefine who she is. It is also where she met her husband and business partner, Brandon Yager. Today, Deborah uses her journey to empower women to release shame, own their truth, and step boldly into their purpose. Her message is simple: your past doesn't define you. It can become your greatest power. So thank you, Deborah, for being here today.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
I just love, I didn't want to go all into your story in your bio, because I kind of just want you to take us back to where you have been to who you are today, and also talk to us a little bit more on how you got into the NLP and what you do. So wherever you want to take us to.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me on today. I'm really excited to dive in and serve in any way that I possibly can. And I look back at my journey and I'm so grateful. And really, it's a love story. It's a love story because that's where I found my honey and my sweetheart that, I coach and train with. But it's also a love story of falling in love with myself. Because back in 2011, I was not in a good place, and I was what we call spiritually rock bottom. And those of you that are listening may be experiencing this right now, because there's a lot going on and there's been a lot of shift and change. Well, mine happened to happen in 2011, and I was in a career that was completely wrong for me. And some of your listeners may be listening to this and be like, that was me. Because I felt like I was trapped. Every single day that I got up for work, I had to put on this mask, and I felt like a piece of my soul was dying, right?
Mm-hmm.
The feeling like you're just not aligned and you don't know what to do about it and you don't know how to get out. And I also was a girl that, interestingly enough, listen to this language, because NLP is all about the science of language and how that creates your reality. I was really good at manifesting everything I didn't want. And so I used to call myself a loser magnet. And I almost had an identity around it where it was like this badge of honor that I didn't understand. I would move from town to state, and I would attract the same abusive pattern every single time. And I didn't understand why. And I would tell all my girlfriends, I'm like, I don't understand. I will never find that guy again. And then it would, like a magnet, I would draw him into me. Little did I know that I was only manifesting what I believed that I was worthy of.
Mm.
So all the abuse I experienced was a representation of what I thought that I deserved. And at the core, I thought that I deserved to be punished. It was really interesting because I also believed, and I used to cast into reality. That's why we call it spelling, because it's really casting spells every time you say something about yourself that's disempowering. I used to say I'm an addict, and I played the part. So for me, my addiction was drugs, alcohol, it was sex, it was binging on Netflix, it was food. I also had body dysmorphia, anything that could fill this void that I felt inside. And it felt like I could never fill it. It felt so painful to be in my body. And to be real with you guys, is that I was a stripper and I was a sex worker. And I started doing that when I was 16, because at the core, I didn't think that I was good enough, smart enough to do anything else. And so I got into that business because I thought that that was the only way that I could make money and be successful. And I felt completely trapped. And so I hit rock bottom for like 1,000 times. And I realized if I didn't change, I would either be in jail and dead. And that was actually the turning point for me, because I got arrested. I got arrested in Las Vegas. I was telling you how I used to make the journey from San Diego to Las Vegas. My
Mhm.
ending destination point before I found the work that I do now was in Vegas. And I got arrested for prostitution, essentially. And I was sitting in jail looking around at all these beautiful women that had all this potential, coming from backgrounds of trauma and abuse, sitting there in their cell like caged animals. And I realized if I didn't change something, that's where I would end up, or even worse, dead. And
Mm.
so I started to pray. I started praying to God, to the universe, my higher divine, and I asked for help. And interestingly enough, it didn't happen right away. Sometimes spirit will, give you the gift a little later. For me, I needed to suffer a little bit longer. Oh, by the way, that was another belief, is that I got self worth out of suffering. And a lot of us get stuck in that construct. There's a whole industry in the world right now that tells us that we have to suffer to become worthy. And so I finally found my mentors, and they guided me into the work that I do today. And it was really interesting because they were different than anybody had ever met before. Because coming from that background, and some of you may be listening to this and you may not believe that change is possible. And that was me too. Because personal growth and development was never even something that I didn't even know what that was. They're trying to tell me you can come to this 3-day event and you can change your life and you can manifest whatever you want. I'm like, whatever. You guys are freaking crazy. I'm like, whatever. There's something about them that was different than anybody that I had met before. They talked different. Vibrationally, they felt different. I felt just guided, like my higher divine was pulling me into them. And so I did. I took the leap of faith. I wound up in one of their 3-day intro events. And to be completely honest with you, I almost bailed 1,000 times, because I was looking around the room, looking at all of these amazing people, that comparing myself to them, thinking that they would find out who I really am and like how terrible I was because of the work that I was doing. And for some reason, my soul nudged me it again, is like, you need to stay here. There's something here for you. And as I was sitting there, it became so clear to me what I wanted, because I saw this two people, this couple, a divine couple, right? They were working together, they were having fun together, they were doing their life's purpose. And she was so confident, she could communicate with ease. They had everything that I wanted. And it's so fascinating that because I continued on the path with them, they basically hard closed me into their program. Thank God, because I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for them guiding my hand across the finish line. And then the next event is when I had my miracle healing, where I literally was using Xanax, Adderall, Oxycontins, Loratab, smoking meth, and drinking about a fifth a day. and I was using halfway through the container. And one of the modalities that we teach now, it saved my life. It integrated that part of me that could not sit still in my own body because it was so painful to be sober. And that changed everything for me because that miracle set the tone for me to continue on the path, knowing that at a soul level, this is what I meant to be doing. However, I had to get out of my own way because that's a whole nother story of, creating the business and meeting my husband. I met him a year later in that training container, and we kind of been off to the races ever since. So that's how I found this work.
Wow, wow, what a like a journey, right? Like you like from 16 to having, the job that you had, doing all the things, and then how long did it take you to when you like finally got arrested, in Vegas? How long did that what was the from how long were you doing this line of work previously? And then how long did that shift change to get to what you are doing today?
So, like I said, my first guy that I hustled was 16 years old. And then I started stripping when I was 17, and I went all the way to 29 is when I found this work. So I got arrested, I think it was in 2028. Before that, there was a year and a half that it was after I was doing methamphetamine for a year. That's a whole, my drug dealer pimp, like that's a whole nother story. I mean, I was in a place where, like I said, if I had not changed, I wouldn't be alive. And so it was about a year for me to kind of search and be on the path of searching for something more, that then when I did manifest those two people to come into my life. And then it was another 1.5 years, 2 years before I manifested Brandon at level 2. And then he helped me get out of the environment, because if I hadn't left, and this is something for all of us to realize, I think this is really important, is that change can happen for everyone with these conditions. First, you have to be willing to surrender to yourself and the higher divine, whatever that is for you, something that's beyond you. That's the first part, because if you're not willing to surrender and then also take massive action and be willing to take radical self ownership for your life, nothing's going to change. And then the other thing is having the tools to support you in that, which is the stuff that we provide. And then also having a community and environment that tells you that you're already changed. And so for me, I had to have, like, I'm so grateful that he invited, we met in level 2. We hit it off really quick, and we fell in love very quickly, and he invited me to come live with him in California, where I knew nobody. I didn't tell anybody my old past story for a long time. I was super ashamed of it, but it was also a good thing because nobody looked at me like, "Oh, poor you, like you're broken or you have a problem." Everybody looked at me as this divine being, which I was. I just didn't believe it yet. And so that combination, anybody can change, I believe. And we've seen it over and over again with people that have severe complex trauma, that have had crazy, horrific things happen to them. But I believe everything's happening for us, not to us. I think that is a spiritual boot camp that we come down and experience to grow and transform, to then have these gifts, like I said in my bio, to then share with the world and help others be empowered. I think that that's why we're here in this interesting matrix that we live in.
I love that. I love that. One of the things I was just wondering is like through your whole journey of healing and everything, was there anything that surprised you the most, or any part that you like felt like you wanted to give up, or like what was the hard part of it?
The hardest part was growing up. And I say that with, because I look at all the times that, like, the pain and the suffering and the drugs and the abuse and the self abuse and all that stuff. That was a lot of pain. I think the hardest was to take radical self ownership for everything in my life and then be willing to change. And then, moving out of my comfort zone, because when I first met Brandon, I still believed I was stupid. Okay, so there's still this construct that I was not enough, I was not smart, I, wasn't capable. I would get an anxiety attack just looking somebody in the eyes, because you have to understand from where I was coming from, I was always high, right? So anytime I had confidence, it was coming from a substance, not from internal love. And so training myself and putting myself so far out of my comfort zone to engage in conversations, to pick up the phone and make conversations happen in his real estate company, and then eventually getting the confidence to start our own business and having to sell people into our programs with, oh my gosh, who am I? Like the imposter syndrome. The
Mhm.
imposter syndrome, who am I to be teaching or who am I to be coaching when I didn't even, barely graduated high school, right? So all of these stories that were causing me to believe that I was limited, but they were all just stories. But neurologically and physiologically, I had to repattern my body through inspired action and clearing at the same time. And to be honest with you, it doesn't take as long as it took for me. I had this another belief system that was, you have to suffer because then look how hard I worked because it's so hard for me. I had a really good victim consciousness, girl. It was pretty rat, if you will, that held me back in a lot of ways.
What I love that you just said is like that you had to get out of that victim mindset, right? And like that this is everything always happens to me, or and like oh poor me and everything like that, and saying okay, accept responsibility for where I am or who I am or whatever is going on. I'm going to change that, and having that power within yourself to know that you are capable and you can make that transformation. And I
Yeah.
think that's the hardest part is everybody wants to. We want to give up sometimes because it's so hard to go through the changes. It's so hard to accept that not that some to get out of that victim mentality and just be like, okay, I'll take ownership. This is what's happened. This is what's going on. And let me just like, I'm going to change. And that's the hardest part. I think that a lot of people have to get out of that mindset. And so one of the things I was curious is how did you learn how to just to trust yourself and love yourself?
So that's been a process. That's been a process, and because I had perfectionism. So these are the constructs I see that pretty much no matter who you talk to, the most successful people, some of my high performance entrepreneurs that run very successful multi-million dollar businesses, right? There is a construct that they are not enough and not worthy that manifests in quite a few different ways. For me, it was the inversion of that. And so I would beat myself up, I would crumble, I would lean out of my life and not take action and then become a victim of my circumstance. So that was what was showing up for me. And that's what shows up for some of our clients that are petrified. They're in a place of fear. And then they tend to then seek control through perfection, thinking that perfection is going to make them feel worthy. And then there's other people, like my husband, he's a direct opposite. So he came in and people told him he wasn't enough. And so then I got to prove you wrong. And so it's still coming, and it's a different inversion. It's like an external version of self-worth. So I'm going to prove you wrong with how smart I am with academia, how much money I make, how much success. I'm going to beat you in sports, whatever it is, the physical body. It's perfect. Like I'm going to be perfect in my physical body. And so this intrinsic self-worth thing, I think, is part of how the Matrix is designed. And when I say Matrix, everybody's seen the movie The Matrix, right? So I believe that we're in this matrix and we actually have power and control with inside the matrix. However, we seem to forget that we have that here. And so my belief systems, is it okay if I share my spiritual belief system on
Oh
it? Because
yeah.
it gives a context around it. So I believe that we all come from God, spirit, ether, however you like to say. So we're all whole. We're spiritually whole. And then we come down into this polarity. And that's what people talk about, the 3D reality. What does that mean? Well, it's a 3D density, but one of the laws of this universe is that we're coming down and we're experiencing complete polarity, which is opposites. That's why when you plug into the news, all you see is this dynamic opposite type of thinking. It's right or left, black or white, whatever it is. There's a right or wrong, good or evil. This is the paradigm that we're in here for. And we're here to experience that as a reflection to come home to ourselves. And so that separation from source makes us feel unwhole. That's what worthy means. That's what perfection actually means. Teleosis is a Greek word for perfection and means spiritual wholeness. And so I think that this unworthiness comes from a place that we implanted in ourselves to remember who we are, that we're divinity in the physical form, to then come back to ourselves, come home again, and to see the world as everybody is a reflection of us. It's just that we forget that when we come here. We take the elixir of forgetfulness And then we get messed up in this 3D reality and we forget our true power. And so when you come from a place like that, and you can come from a place of religion too, it talks about the same thing. Jesus says that you will do more than I do. Like, he is telling us that we are already spiritually whole. And when you come from a place from there and you do the work to get out of your own way, to make mistakes over and over again. So this is not something that happened overnight. This is a concept, but how do I embody it? So how I embody it is over and over again. I went and I failed a lot. I call myself perfectly imperfect, and I truly believe that all failure, and most people have this fear of failure. They have this fear because it means there's something wrong with them. They're broken. That's a construct of the unworthiness, right? There's something wrong. It's not whole. And so I went out and take massive action towards my mission, my purpose that I think is my soul's purpose. And I failed so many times that over a period of time, I realized that every time I fail, I grow and I learn. And so it doesn't
Mhm.
hurt anymore. And I'm not taking it as a personal attack. And so I don't think it means anything. And so as that confidence develops, you become more spiritually whole. And so things like you actually have this knowing of self-love and truth as you've gone through the Earth School process. Because I feel like the reason why we're here is to learn and then serve with this learning. And so when you have that concept, pretty much nothing matters because you win if you lose because you learn, and you win when you win so that you can help people. So either way, it's a beautiful gift. And so that's what has worked for me over a period of time, to have that self-love and to know that I am holy and I am whole. And I love my imperfections because that gives me an opportunity to find out more who I am.
I love how you said all of that. I think you said it so beautifully, and I think that when people fail is when they actually truly failed is when they didn't even try. And when we go and take action, even if it's imperfect action, at least we take the, okay, so it didn't work, okay, so what did I learn from this? What was the experience? How can I improve? How can I tweak this a little bit? And I think that that is a better way to say that we failed than to, and okay, I'm going to improve in this way, than to never take any action and say, oh, I wish I could do this, or I hope one day I'll do this, or oh, but I'm not going to even try because I'm probably going to fail, and then you do nothing. Because I believe that God gave us great gifts, and what a disservice it is when we don't take those great gifts that he gave us and we just keep them and hold on to them and take no action. I think that that's like
Right.
the worst thing to do, right?
I know. And I believe that God wants us to fail because that's how we learn in this the resistance matrix. And going back to the mystery schools of Delphi and the Greek philosophy, they believe that one way to God is to know thyself, right? And it's reflecting back that we are God's children, like we are God's in potential. Should we choose to go and spiritually develop ourselves to have spiritual perfection? And sin, if you look at it, actually means missing the mark. So every time we sin, it means that we're failing and learning to get back on path. So I don't know. I like to go into all these things because I think it's fascinating. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love this conversation. And so one of the things I wanted to know is just like, what is NLP, and like, how did you get into NLP, and when did you like say, this is it, this is what I've been searching for, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, so that's the first thing that I found. So I found a training that was teaching. Okay, I've listed all my teeth. Woo! So I found a training. The people that trained me were certified as trainers of neuro-linguistic programming, a timeline modality, as well as hypnosis and a coaching model. So I went through that as personal growth and development, which some people that work with us now, they come purely to the container to have personal growth and development. But I didn't realize it was a certification. So the whole time they're talking to us about working with other people, working with other people. And to be honest with you, it went way over my head. But then when I kept going, because I was having so much transformation, I wound up in the trainer's training. And that's when the seed got planted. Perhaps I can actually do this for work. And then, of course, there was a whole process around that. So that's where we started. Brandon and I both went through that, and then along our path, we've added so many other modalities. So we do breath work, we do somatic work, internal family systems, we're adding in somatic. So we've taken all these different bodies of knowledge and then added in philosophy, spirituality, mystery school teachings into it as a way to work with people, because not every tool works for everybody, right? So
Mhm.
having that flexibility to be able to guide the client through to really work through anything should they choose to, and they're willing to take radical self-ownership. So that's how we started. And for me, I went all the way with NLP. I did the master trainer because for me, I had never finished anything in my life. And so it was really important for me to go all the way in one area. And then after doing that, I decided I wanted to go learn from other modalities as well.
Mhm. I love that. I love that. It's like, and then setting that goal for yourself. Like, I want to finish this and I want to learn more and I want to see how I can help other people. And I love how you said that, not every tool can fix everybody. And it's like, we just got to have, like, that's why there's toolboxes, right? Because not every tool's what you need to do. Like, one tool doesn't fit all, right? You have
Right.
to like use different tools in the toolbox. So I love how you shared that. One of the things I wanted to know is, like, you hid your story, you said, for years. You didn't want people to know, you were ashamed of it. What finally gave you the courage to speak it out loud?
So I would share it one on one. It was probably about a year and a half after we started doing this work. Before, I was very buttoned up and didn't ever curse or anything because I was like trying to put that part of myself away. And I think that was part of my healing journey, right? So it was really, I'm grateful that I did that to experience it. And then I started sharing it one on one. And then I started sharing it inside our containers, our trainings, but I never shared it publicly until we moved to Austin, Texas. So that was 2018. And I knew that it was time, right? Because for me, I felt like my message needed to be heard. I talk about how, I'm here to help people reflect back that there is no shame, it's just learning, right? And so I did a podcast. It was so funny too, because as soon as I did the podcast, immediately I got a sore throat, because all of that was stored in my throat chakra of not being able to share for so long. And my biggest fear was that it was going to hurt my family. And so I called my parents afterwards. I didn't tell them before. My poor parents, they've gone through hell and back with me, but they actually were very happy that I did. And then also my other part of my family that I thought would be embarrassed and ashamed of it, they reached out to me and said, "Wow, now we really understand what was going on with you," because I think they were super worried and they didn't know. My parents probably didn't share the details, and so it was really beautiful. Not everybody has that experience, because a lot of the practitioners that we work with are sharing their stories from, we teach people how to get on stages and share their story. Sometimes people are not so nice to them. I was very fortunate to have that happen and have it supported. But I feel like that's one of the biggest fears for people. They have this big gift and they have this beautiful story. We all have a story. You have an incredible story. And sharing it and being authentic with that story helps other people realize they're not alone. And so I had so many people after I've done that and continue to do that from Stages podcast, and making it open and honest. So people realize that they're not alone. We all have stuff. I still have stuff. I'm still working on it. This is why we're here, is to work through our stuff. And that there are ways to transform, and that if you need support, we're here for you, right?
I love that. I love that. What would you say to the woman who is carrying shame, or who might be listening right now and is like carrying the shame of her past, and how she needs to learn, like how she could start moving forward to let go of that?
Yeah. So I would say again, it's such a gift. Everything you've experienced that you believe is shameful is a gift. And so once you start doing the internal work on it, you'll realize that everything that you've done, whether it's guilt or shame, um, you can transmute that into service. So everything you've experienced, once you transform it and transmute it for yourself and get wisdom from it, then you can serve others. And so there is no shame around that, because you're in service for others. That's why one of the reasons why we're here. They talk about that in the Bible as well, is we're here to serve. And then the other thing is, who are you surrounding yourself with that doesn't accept you for all of you? Right? Because shame is also an external thing that people put on to other people. it's sometimes an inside job, but sometimes it's externally. So who in your life comes from and operates from a system of controlling or feeding back the shame paradigm, and evaluate them and have that conversation with those people, because I personally like to surround myself with people that believe in possibility, that know that all wisdom comes from failure, that there is no shame and guilt as long as we're learning from it, and that everything happens for us, not to us, right? And we all take radical self ownership for our life, and walking the path along with divine will. So when you're around people that really walk the walk of that, they also reflect back that you are enough and you're beautiful, and all parts of you that are messy are beautiful and they are whole, and we all love all of it, right? So that's what I would share.
Yeah. I love that. And I think it's also important for people to remember that nobody here on earth is perfect. There's only one person that walked the earth that was perfect, and that was Jesus, right? And and so to have that constant need for perfection, or constant need to think that, be fearful of speaking out, or anything that we go through, not talking about our past or whatever, for being judged, like, we just need to let it go, like, let it go and let it be. And also at the same time, we shouldn't, if we don't want people judging us, then we should not be judging others as well. I think that's important.
Right.
You say that you help women, you coach them, to give them, help them reclaim their power. I believe that's what you say. So, how do you do that?
Yeah. So a power comes from owning your worth. And so the process is kind of the same of what I was talking about first. It's discovering what you're not aware of and where it comes from. And so a lot of the times when we're working with people, when it comes to self-worth, releasing shame, and finding personal power, it's really diving in and figuring out what the story is, but the story they're telling themselves, but also the pattern behavior that is showing up from the story, and the physiology that's showing up too, because you can actually feel it, you can see it in the body. And so, where did it originally come from? When did the blueprint come, right? Was it growing up and modeling mom and dad? Did you grow up in a family that was not safe, right? Or did you have a very critical parent? Or perhaps they did the best they could with the resources they had, but they're just parents like anything else. And maybe you experienced that. Or maybe people really got some severe trauma, and that's not even the whole story. So what happened in the womb? We know epigenetically that whatever happens to mom, that's imprinted into the fetus. And we also know by science now with epigenetics that if your ancestors experienced devastation, famine, war, trauma, that's passed down through our DNA. They did a study with mice where they would do a experiment where they would let it smell a cherry blossom, and then they would give it a little shock. And 6 to 5 pups down from that original shock, they would still have a knee jerk reflex. And so, what that's telling us is that whatever happened to your ancestors also is in you as well, not only from modeling behavior and experiencing it through the generations and the oral stories that our family member says, let me tell you about all the family diseases that you have, or like, let me tell you about all the women in our family that's super uptight, or whatever the story is that's been passed down, that then creates this paradigm and this construct of how we unconsciously show up today. We know that most of our imprinting and hardwiring comes in from 0 to 7. And so whatever was happening at 0 to 7 is a possibility of what shows up now. The good news, and another thing to consider too, some people, 50% of the population, believe in past lives too. Some people believe their souls reincarnate over and over again. So that could be a factor. However, some people that don't believe in it, it also could just be a metaphor for something they need to learn in this lifetime if they experience it through regression. So why I'm sharing all that is that's the blueprint of where we go originally to find out what the original root cause, like the seed is, that's causing them not to shine, to not show up boldly, to not own their own power. Perhaps they had a power dynamic growing up that was unhealthy, and so then they reject power altogether because it was used in a manipulative, not healthy way. And so whatever that imprint was, we can get to the root cause of it and clear it to where all of a sudden their behavior changed, their energy changed, how they speak changes, Also, what is attracted in your life changes. It's so fascinating when we've seen this over and over again. It's happened to me personally too, doing the clearing work myself. That person that used to disempower me disappears. It's like we're done with that contract. Now they're going somewhere else, and not that off this planet, but they disappear and go on with their new thing, or they get moved out of the job or something. And it's because we're doing the inside work. And so that over a period of time developed self-worth, self-love, and personal power. Because a lot of people reject power because power is also being used in a negative way. And so a lot of people are afraid of their own power. They either think they don't have any, or they're afraid of their power because they're afraid of using it in a negative way a lot of times. And so clearing out the fear around that is one of the steps that we do.
I love how you talked about the generational, like the with using the mice as an example of smelling the cherry blossom and getting picked. I think you said, or buzzed, or whatever. And I've just recently, I just spoke to somebody else yesterday who was also saying the same thing: is that we can carry generational trauma if our family like been through racism or domestic violence or anything, and it could be 400 to 200 to 400 600 years ago, and we can still experience that, and we carry that weight with us. And it's very interesting that how you brought up the souls and everything like that, because that's another a conversation I just had with somebody. And just when I look at it, and I was thinking about that in a different lens that I never looked at before, it really just like helped me release a lot of that, like releasing, like doing some breath work and just releasing that to make myself like not carry that burden anymore. And it's not, you never know, and that pain can show up like you said, your throat, right? Your sore throat after you had did the podcast. And it's like sometimes people have neck pain, back pain, all the things, and it's like, are we carrying that pain because we're carrying like the neck pain, the weight of everybody else on our shoulders, or
Right.
that trauma? And how to just release and let yourself do the breath work or meditate or whatever, modalities that you can use, and different types of things that you can do to release all that, is what a like it's just very interesting how it all ties in.
Yeah, and it's so empowering. So I would say, and I'm not a doctor, I'm just disclosing that, but we work with a lot of holistic health practitioners that are doing like naturopathic work, homeopathy, and all the things. I would say that, 80 to 90% of disease of the body is from emotional stuff that may not even be yours, which is fascinating, right? So the perception of, it's like a distortion pattern, because energy and motion, that's what emotions are, emotions. And negative emotions, it is damaging to the body over time. And so if we're holding on to negative emotions from other incarnations or our lineage, then that could create how the body shows up in the now. And the good news is that you can release it, like you said, through breath work, meditation, regression, the work that we're doing with hypnosis and quantum time technique. It's really powerful for releasing that stuff in the generations.
Yeah, I think it's just so interesting. I was really interested, like you and your husband have been doing this work together. How long have you guys been in this type of business together?
So we met in 2013, and then we started our business in early 15. It took me about a year and something to get out of my own way. And so originally it was something that I was creating for us. And then he was in real estate. So he had a statewide brokerage in California. And then once he saw that it was growing into a business, he fully stepped in and then left the other career behind. So we've been together in this since 2015, 16.
I think that's amazing, and that's a decade of having this business together as a husband and wife, which is can be challenging at times. And so one of the things I was just wondering is, what is one thing that people that you wish people understood about building not just your life together but a business together?
Yeah. So one of the things is making sure that you stay in alignment. And I truly believe we wouldn't even be a couple anymore if we didn't have the tools, because we were both working through a lot of stuff. I was coming from a completely different life. And so that translated in the beginning. And for us, we're getting aligned with our vision every quarter because stuff is changing so much. We're really we're casting the vision. We're daily working on ourselves, right? We're clearing out and we're holding each other accountable to a higher vision. And one of our highest values inside of our relationship as well as in our company is personal growth and development. And so that has helped us, no matter the trenches, whatever we've happened, no matter the times that we've slung shit at each other, because we're not perfect either. We've said things that we don't necessarily like that we said, right? So we're human just like anything else.
Mhm.
But as long as you can come back to the core that we're here to do spiritual work and we're here to grow and transform, you can get back on path from anything. And also doing the, like, consistently doing the work and getting coaches and mentors. Right now we're working with a Mayan elder in Tulum that is helping us through relationship and divine sexuality. And so we're constantly learning and growing together, and that keeps us sharp. And also, being in the business of transformation too, it also holds you accountable to another level of integrity of your own transformation. So I give that as the the reason why we've been together for so long, and also coming back to the tools of communication. So coming back to what's important to us, how do we need to communicate better, how can we get on the same page, how can we be aligned, and then doing the work.
I love that. I love that. I know that, having as an entrepreneur, having a business that lasts more than 5 years is one amazing, but then also doing it with your spouse and here, 10 years. So kudos to you. And I love that you shared that you're both, you're making sure that you're in alignment, you have that communication, and that you're also continuing to know that you're going through transformation and you are doing that personal growth. I think that's so important because when you're growing, you can't just grow by yourself and not have your partner growing with you, because then it's kind of like leaving behind. But then sometimes they'll see that you're growing and then they want in as a part of that as well. But taking that first step and taking that initiative too, I think is important. How can people work with you? What is your website? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so they can find us on jaegertraining.com. So that has all of our retreats on it. So we have a beautiful Vision Alchemy, a 3-day event that's amazing for people that are couples that want to become more aligned and be aligned in their vision, whether they're in business or not. Just aligning their vision as a couple, or somebody that's in business that wants to be able to take it to the next level this year in 2026. And then we also have a business alchemy training where we dive into sacred selling and how to speak what we do and clearing out those abundance blocks that hold most practitioners back. And then last, we have nlpmadesimple.com, which I can give you the link for. That is, it's a really beautiful um, home study NLP. So it's taking all of the what you would learn in a practitioner course and making it really simple, really easy and digestible, that you can learn it from the comfort of your own home and you can apply it. So it's a self-study. You're going to have, amazing exercises to start working on it in your business or in your career, your loved ones and stuff like that. And we've had amazing transformation. Somebody, one of our graduates of that course, lost 50 pounds. We've had people be able to go ask for their raise in their job. I'm just shifting all kinds of stuff. So I think that would probably be the best place to start. And it's very low cost. So I'll go ahead and give you the link for that.
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, I think that there's so many tools that that you have out there, and so many ways you can help. And I'll make sure that I have all the links that you provide in the show notes as well, so that way my listeners can connect with you as well. But one of the things that I also love to ask my guests as we wrap up is, what is a word, a phrase, a book to read, or some type of action that my listeners can take today in order to help them refine and shine?
So I will say two things, if that's okay.
Oh, that's fine.
I just want everybody to know that you are perfectly imperfect. Because when you fully embrace that and realize that you are a beautiful, beautiful snowflake and you're unique in all of you, and all of you is welcome, and all of you is beautiful, and all of you is whole, that's where everything starts to transform. And then a book that actually was the first book that was recommended to me was The Four Agreements. It's a good place to start. I don't know.
Yeah, I love that book. Actually, it's funny because yesterday I was thinking about I need to pull that book up again and
So
read it again.
good.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you for all that you provided, and I just really appreciate you sharing your story and just sharing how, change is possible, transformation is possible, and just all the valuable tips that you shared and how people can relate to, imperfection or, having to be trying to be perfect and, all the things and how we can change and it's okay to be imperfect and also just to take action. And so thank you so much for being a guest today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Refine and Shine. We hope you find valuable insights and inspiration to fill your journey of continuous improvement. Remember, the key to success lies in refining your processes and letting your inner brilliance shine. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your feedback is greatly appreciated and helps us reach more listeners like you who are eager to refine and shine in all areas of life. Stay connected with us on social media for updates and additional resources and behind-the-scenes content. We love hearing from our listeners, so feel free to reach out with any suggestions, questions, or success stories you'd like to share. As we wrap up, remember that the power to transform your life lies within you. Keep striving for growth, embracing change, and seeking opportunities to refine your skills. Together, let's continue to shine bright and make a positive impact in the world. Until next time, keep refining and keep shining.